now it's time for me to scoot down to the other end of the couch so you can take my place on the hot cushion. Today, I'm going to discuss your fantasy football footprint and follow that up with some questions. So please keep in mind, I'm going to be very direct, to the point, and brutally honest. And the questions are not necessarily going to be easy. Is that okay?
Go ahead, man. Fire away.
All right. Before we get into the meat of this potato, I'd like to ask just a few things about you. Do you ever have to motivate yourself to enjoy this hobby? And if so, how do you do it?
Yes, I do. And I think the way I do that is what we talked about earlier, churning rosters that I'm not completely comfortable with, because I enjoy rebuilds. I enjoy if I'm in an active league, and I try to keep all my leagues, I try to be in active leagues, but that's the fun piece for me. That's the motivational piece for me is churning rosters. So yeah, I motivate myself and I pick one or two rosters and turn them.
So you do that by basically having your scrub roster that you don't necessarily care about the team, and you're trying to keep your trading skills alive. That's really cool. I really like that concept. I try to build my teams more like always continually trading a few pieces. Like I reload more than rebuild. And so I did my first rebuild this year by getting an orphan, or last year, excuse me. And it's been a lot of fun. And, now that you're saying this, I think that might be my next avenue for another team. I think that's smart.
Yeah. Again, you need an active league, because a rebuild in a league where there's not a lot of trading is extremely difficult, and it can be just excruciating trying to get things done and flip that roster. And the other thing to rebuilding, it doesn't necessarily have to be a scrub team. It can be a team that I like the players on or like the roster I've constructed. It just doesn't perform well. Right. Sometimes you get a collaboration of players together. You think you've built a good roster, you like the roster, but it just, it's middle of the pack for whatever reason. And sometimes those are the ones that I just have to say, and the ones I enjoy doing. I was wrong the first blueprint. And now I need to come up with a different strategy. The fun piece for me is coming up with a strategy, designing on a roster build, and then trying to fulfill that. Right. Sometimes there's some pieces that just come out of left field that you're not expecting. Those are great, but for the most part, I try to put together and say, these are 2 or 3 players I really want to build around, or this is the type of roster I really want to try to construct. I lay it out ahead of time, and then looking back at the final product or the journey is what I enjoy, and that's the motivating factor for me.
That's pretty amazing. Easier question this time. Whereabouts you live in this world?
I live in Connecticut. I'm in the southern part of New England. I'm about, 35, 40 minutes away from the UConn campus, near the Mass line. So I like New England. Ideally, I'd like to, my wife and I want to retire shortly because, we're getting up there. I'm in my 50s now. So the goal is to be somewhere on the Maine coastline in the next 3 to 5 years. But right now I'm in Connecticut, and my son's in Massachusetts, and we're all pretty happy in New England.
Okay, so obviously you've been playing fantasy football a long time. We discussed some of this stuff earlier. Have you ever made a trade that you instantly regretted?
Can I change it a pair
Sure.
and say that I rejected one that I instantly regretted?
That works.
In a contract league, my favorite league, I drafted Laquan Treadwell. I think I drafted him third that year, and somebody drafted Michael Thomas fifth, and they offered me Michael Thomas and a first for Laquan Treadwell and a second, and I turned it down and immediately regretted it and tried to go back and make that deal. And that deal haunts me to this day.
It's amazing. Sometimes you think about that and the way you turned that around. Like sometimes it's not the opportunities that you lost on, it's the ones you missed out on.
Mm-hmm. Kyle, so I think that's really important, and something I'm highlighting in this Psychology of Trading article for DLF is that every trade offer or every trade rejection is a decision. So it's not just the trades that you complete. So the owners that are overly cautious or overly safe, or even don't even send offers, that's a decision. Mm-hmm. And so you can make, there's no right and wrongs, but you can make overly conservative decisions that hurt you. you can say, oh, I'm going to ride out with this guy because I don't want to trade him to you and have him go off or something like that. Like that's a decision that could really harm you in the future. And so, think of every single option, whether it's a thought of sending an offer or not, as whether it's I hate Twitter polls, but if you have to pick one or the other on a Twitter poll for that either thought of a decision, that trade offer, whatever it may be, it's a decision and it's something that you can analyze yourself on.
Okay, so I'm a beer guy, and I don't really know the beer scene in Connecticut. Do you have any major breweries or microbreweries that are major in the area that you tend to frequent or appreciate?
So a little bit about myself. I'm a diabetic,
Okay.
and I found out a couple of years ago, and I made some major health changes. I was 260 pounds. I got all the way down to 188. I'm hovering right around 200 now. I really dropped my A1C. One of the things that I cut out was, drinking beer. So I really haven't had a beer in about 3 years. Every once in a while I'll still have a drink. It's not very often. I'm more of a Tito's vodka guy. But for the most part, there's a couple of decent breweries. I know there's one in Munson, Mass. that's extremely popular. Treehouse Brewery, I believe it's called.
Yes.
And they do a really nice job. But again, for me, it was a lifestyle choice, and I really needed to make some changes in my diet and my and just my taking of certain beverages. And so, like I said, I whittled everything back and try to stay pretty strict now.
Well, that's pretty.
Looks like it's working.
Yeah. Well, and that's hard to do. That that ability to stay focused on that, even in light of something like you're talking about, even knowing that you have a condition that makes it where those things could impact you. I mean, there's a whole lot of psychological things that go into the fact that you still have to make that choice and overcome the fact that your habits are something you want to continue to do. So, kudos to you, man.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it.
Absolutely. And, I talk in therapy all the time about coping and, coping with something like, finding out you're diabetic and needing to make changes. Oftentimes some people may cope with that by wanting to drink. And so by eliminating something like that, that's, shows the strength and your kind of fortitude and your ability to cope.
We talked a little bit, prior to the show, and just life in general is difficult now. And some of the things that I went through, with my health, just getting it right, righting the ship. And like I said, today with COVID and some of the other issues that are going on, I talked about pen to paper being therapeutic, and it truly is for me. And, just one point that I would share to anybody who's struggling is when you're able to write and you're able to put some of your feelings down to paper, some people may think it's trivial, but again, I found it extremely helpful my whole life. And the fact that I was able to take some of those challenging situations that were kind of scary at the time when I found out I had, certain health concerns that I needed to really rectify. I can look back now on that journey because it's documented, in a journal, and I can look back on the things I accomplished and the feelings I had then and see where I was at. And it really helps motivate me. We talked about motivation earlier. The fact that I can see that journey on a page by page basis really helps motivate me, and it helps me just to strategize and to kind of sort through some of the fears and emotions and concerns that come along with just the intensity of a situation.
And I could listen to you talk all day. You've got some amazing information and life experience that you can give to people. I'm going to give you, though, my final intro question before we get into the real hard-hitting analysis. What is your favorite thing about fantasy football cheerleaders?
Fantasy football cheerleaders? The outfits? I have no idea.
I like that it's co-ed.
I like points per pom-pom leagues.
Points per pom-pom league. There you go.
I will say this, you guys, just as we're talking about this, not so much the cheerleaders. There are some tremendous female fantasy owners, fantasy commissioners, and just a shout out to them, because I mean, it's not easy in a male dominated, male driven industry. It just, sports in general can't be easy. And there's some really, really talented females out there that are doing a great job with podcasts and with writing and just, getting their own sites off the ground. And so just kudos to them. And I'm glad, I really value the content that they provide. And they're really doing, a lot of them are really doing a great job.
Yeah. And especially in our, current societal landscape where, we just really need to be advocates for anyone that, has been held down, has, just been overlooked by our kind of societal structures that, have been ingrained over time. And, I know that somebody kind of came at Liz Loza, I think last week or something like that. And, it was awesome to see everybody just, kind of there to support her, but she also, just showed how awesome and strong she is by just like dominating whoever that was with like one comment, and everybody was just like, we don't even need to say anything because Liz already handled it herself.
Yeah, Liz is sharp.
Yeah, I want to challenge you guys. We need to have a call for diversity in some of our outreach to the rest of the Dynasty community. We need to see if we get some ladies' perspectives on the psychology here, because I think that'd be super fascinating.
2 ladies in my area alone, with Casey Kasem and Katie Flowers, that I think the world, especially Katie, not to have to pick favorites there, but I've been listening to Katie for years and just didn't even realize she lives up, about an hour from me. So, I would love to have her on, and that's somebody I'm going to reach out to and see if we can get her on one of these shows. She's the Devi Diva, the Diva of Devi. She's awesome.
Well, I don't know if you guys have ever read it or not, but I put it as my pinned tweet every once in a while. A few years back, I had written an article on a person who goes by the name of Coin Flip, Carla. She's
Carla. I play in a lot of leagues with her.
Yeah, Carla's one of the best commissioners I've ever dealt with. But she had a very difficult transition, basically coming to show that she was actually a woman in the industry. For the first few years, she basically let folks think she was a guy, because just of the difficulties associated with being a commissioner and being a woman in the industry. There's an article that I have on DLF that I'll pin it up there after we get done recording this. It's entitled "The Fantasy Football Odyssey," and it just kind of goes back and captures her, just the difficulties she faced and how she ended up making that announcement and basing folks know, she was a woman in the industry, and she was very capable and did a fantastic job.
And for those that haven't read that, we will happily retweet that, and especially with our mission of Rich's push to have us be more diverse on this show, which is a great mission to have. And Casey Kasem's in my SFBX division, Pogs, so she's going to crush me there, but we'll try and get her on here as well.
All right, so now it's time for the hard-hitting analysis and drama-laden questions. Are you ready?
Fire away.
Question number 1. Leo, you are a member of the Fantasy Sports Writers Association. Jeremy is currently a member of the Fantasy Sports Wronger Association with his hot takes such as there is no such thing as value. People who partake in solemn ceremonies are also writers, but when things go too far, that too can be wrong. In downtown Fort Worth, it is legal to turn, even when the light is red, in what direction while traveling on 7th, turning onto Throckmorton?
Right.
Left. Sorry, I would have also accepted the bonus of north, but in Texas, we can turn left from one-way street to another one-way street. So that was a difficult question. I apologize. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'm glad I'm not driving in Texas.
Most people don't know that, and they just sit there and wait at the light. And nobody cares. But question number 2. The Notebook is what a lot of people say is your claim to fame. Jeremy is a huge fan and has read the story many times. I only saw the movie adaptation, which had rave reviews. I learned a lot from this, namely that keeping a notebook will make you cry and then pass away with your lover suffering from dementia. Rachel McAdams was the lead actress in this 2005 love story movie titled what?
The Notebook?
No, that was Wedding Crashers. So 2004 was The Notebook, but 2005 she was the love interest in Wedding Crashers.
Okay.
Anyway, you're not supposed to get these right. We've only had one guest get more than half of them right, and it was John Bosch. We'll probably talk about him in infamy forever. Usually a half a point. You're doing pretty good.
Okay.
All right.
Still hope.
Question number 3. Leo, you are a trailblazer in tracking tendencies of co-owners. This task has proven a helpful tool for you to use in your leagues and to teach others. Co-owning works well in situations where partners see eye to eye, but things can get messy when teams split up and take their players to other leagues or only get custody of their squad every other weekend. Divorce rates in America have been alarmingly high. What are the 2 highest consecutive numbers that can be multiplied together to give a number less than 1,000?
29 and 30.
That's really freaking close. I'm going to give him a half a point. It's 31 and 32.
Oh, my God.
That's really damn close.
Posted your half point. You're up in the leaderboard.
That's good. All right. Question number 4. QBs are a cheat code in Superflex formats, at least for the most traditional scoring. Some ideas are emerging to nerf QBs, like seen in the Scott Fish Bowl 10. This methodology seemed to work as the ADP during that tournament reflects later pushes for QB3 or QB2. In the film True Lies, Arnold Schwarzenegger's wife was played by Jamie Curtis. Jamie Curtis usually goes by 3 names. What is the middle name of the commanding general of the Union Army during the American Civil War?
Stephen?
It was actually Ulysses. So he was
I thought it was Ulysses S. Grant, so I was going with the S.
He was born Hiram Ulysses Grant and changed his name to Ulysses S. Grant. I don't even know that the S actually is a name. I think it's just like literally S period is what
Okay, I just went for the most common name beginning with S.
Well, the whole point of all of these is to make it a little more difficult on you to answer the question, as I give you a whole lot of fodder to make it more difficult. But thank you for your time. I appreciate your candid and truthful answers and my insightful and hard-hitting analysis.
It was fantastic.